The trust fund was supposed to be my ticket to freedom. Instead, I watched it vanish into a sea of white tulle and overpriced flower arrangements at my cousin's wedding. I'm Caitlin, and this is how my family's betrayal became the catalyst for my revenge. You can't be serious. My voice trembled as I stared at my mother across our kitchen island. The marble countertop felt cold under my palms, grounding me in a moment that seemed surreal. Sweetie, you have to understand, Mum said, fidgeting with her coffee mug. Madeline's wedding is in 3 weeks, and Uncle Zack lost everything in that bad investment. We couldn't let her cancel. So you decided to cancel my future instead? The words came out sharp enough to make her flinch. That money was for my business startup. Grandpa left it specifically for me. It's just money, Caitlin. Family comes first. I laughed, but there was no humour in it. Family comes first? Then why am I always last? The sound of the front door opening interrupted us. Madeline waltzed in, wedding binder in hand, her perfectly manicured nails clutching a stack of fabric swatches. Her face lit up when she saw me. Caitlin, perfect timing. I need your opinion on the table linens for the reception. My stomach churned. She had no idea she was planning her dream wedding with my dreams. Did you tell her? I asked Mom, my voice eerily calm. Mum's face paled. Madeline, sweetheart, maybe we should... Tell me what? Madeline's smile faltered. That your fancy wedding is being funded by my trust fund, the money Grandpa left me to start my business. I watched the colour drain from her face. Surprise? What? No, Dad said he took care of everything. Madeline's voice trailed off as realization dawned. Well, Uncle Zack certainly took care of it, with my money. The wedding binder slipped from Madeline's hands, scattering papers across the floor. I had no idea, I swear. Caitlin, I would never. Save it. I pushed away from the counter. I need some air. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door, but Mom caught my arm. Please, let's talk about this. We can figure something out. I yanked my arm free. Figure what out? How to magically replace $60,000, or how to undo the fact that my own mother went behind my back to raid my trust fund? You're being dramatic, she said, her tone shifting to that patronizing voice she used when she thought I was overreacting. Sometimes we have to make sacrifices for family. Funny how I'm the only one making sacrifices around here. My sister Scarlett appeared at the top of the stairs, probably drawn by our raised voices. What's going on? Ask Mom, I spat. She's great at explaining how family works. I stormed out to my car, ignoring their calls. My phone buzzed repeatedly as I drove, but I didn't need to look to know it was them. Probably trying to justify their betrayal with more family-first nonsense. 3 hours later, I sat in my apartment with my laptop open, staring at a confirmation email for a one-way ticket to Seattle. My hands shook as I packed my essentials into 2 suitcases, leaving behind everything that reminded me of them. A soft knock at my door made me freeze. Go away, Mom. It's Hugh. I hesitated before opening the door. My cousin Hugh, Madeline's brother, stood there looking uncomfortable. I heard what happened. Come to defend your sister? He shook his head. What they did was wrong. Dad should have never asked for your money, and Aunt Solstice should have never agreed. But they did. I turned back to my packing. Where are you going? Away, far away from this mess. Hugh was quiet for a moment. Will you come to the wedding? I zipped my suitcase with more force than necessary. Would you, if you were me? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. The next morning, I stood at the airport gate, my entire life condensed into 2 bags and a carry-on. My phone showed 15 missed calls and twice as many messages. I deleted them all without reading them. As I settled into my seat on the plane, I made myself a promise. I would build something better than any business I could have started with that trust fund. And when I did, when they saw what I achieved on my own, they'd realize exactly what they threw away. The plane took off, and I watched my hometown disappear beneath the clouds. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting ahead. And that's exactly what I intended to do. Seattle greeted me with its signature rain and a cramped Airbnb that smelled faintly of someone else's cooking. After 3 weeks of job hunting, countless interviews, and living off instant ramen, I was starting to question my impulsive decision to leave. My phone buzzed with another text from Scarlett. "Mum's a mess. Please just call her." I typed back, "Still busy settling in. Talk later." The same response I'd been giving for weeks. The coffee shop, where I'd been camping out to use their Wi-Fi, had become my second home. That's where everything changed. "You've been here every day this week," the barista said, sliding my usual Americano across the counter. "Job hunting." "That obvious?" She smiled. "I'm Amanda, and trust me, I've seen that look before. What field?" "Tech, project management specifically." I took a sip of my coffee. Though at this point, I'd consider anything that doesn't involve asking if someone wants fries with that. "Actually," Amanda glanced around before lowering her voice, "my brother works at Horizon Tech. They're desperately looking for a junior project manager. Want me to put in a word?" 2 days later, I sat across from David, the hiring manager at Horizon Tech, trying not to fidget in my carefully chosen interview outfit. "Your resume is impressive," he said, "but there's a gap in your employment history. Why'd you leave your last position so suddenly?" I prepared for this question. I needed a change. Seattle's tech scene offered opportunities I couldn't find back home. "Honest answer?" He leaned forward. "The real one?" I met his gaze. My family made some choices that affected my career plans. Instead of letting it defeat me, I decided to rebuild somewhere new. I'm here because I want to prove something to myself more than anyone else. He nodded slowly. "Tell me about the most challenging project you've managed." I launched into my prepared example, but he cut me off. "No, not work. Tell me about moving here, planning, execution, obstacles. Treat it like a project." For the next 20 minutes, I broke down my cross-country move like a case study. Resources, timeline, risk management, contingency plans. David's expression remained neutral until I finished. Then he smiled. "That's exactly what I wanted to hear. When can you start?" Walking out of Horizon Tech with a job offer, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Madeline. "The wedding's in 2 days. There's still time to come. Please?" I deleted it without responding and called my new landlord instead. The apartment I'd viewed yesterday wasn't perfect, but it was within walking distance of Horizon Tech, and more importantly, it was mine. 3 days into my new job, I was drowning in documentation and loving every minute of it. My desk neighbour, Rachel, became my unofficial mentor. "You're catching on fast," she said, peering over my shoulder at my project timeline. "But you might want to add some buffer time here and here." She pointed at the screen. "Trust me, developers always need more time than they claim." "Speaking from experience?" "Let's just say I've learned the hard way." She grinned. "Hey, a bunch of us are grabbing drinks after work. Want to join?" That evening, sitting at a bar with my new co-workers, I checked my phone out of habit. A new email from Mom waited in my inbox. "The wedding was beautiful. Madeline looked perfect. I wish you'd been there. We all did. Please come home for Sunday dinner this week. We can talk about helping you start over here." I set my phone face down on the bar. "Bad news?" Rachel asked. "Just family stuff." "Want to talk about it?" I shook my head. "I'd rather hear about this nightmare project you mentioned earlier, the one with the impossible deadline." As Rachel launched into her story, I felt something shift inside me. Here, nobody knew me as the girl whose family stole her trust fund. Nobody pitied me or tried to justify what happened. I was just Caitlin, the new project manager who asked smart questions and stayed late to learn the systems. Back in my new apartment that night, I sat at my tiny IKEA desk and opened my laptop. My savings account balance was painfully low after the move and apartment deposit, but my first paycheck would hit next week. I created a new spreadsheet and titled it Success Plan. Under it, I typed my first goal: prove them all wrong. The wedding was over. My cousin had gotten her perfect day with my money. But sitting there, planning my future in a city where nobody knew my past, I realized something important. Sometimes the best opportunities come disguised as betrayals. I closed my laptop and smiled. This was just the beginning. 6 months flew by in a blur of deadlines, late nights, and increasingly impressive project deliverables. I just finished presenting my latest success to the executive team when David called me into his office. "Close the door, Caitlin," he gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Do you know why you're here?" My heart raced. The Thompson account. 3 months ago, that account was hemorrhaging money. Today, they're our biggest success story. He slid a folder across his desk. "Which is why I'm recommending you for senior project manager." I stared at the folder. "But that position usually requires—" "5 years of experience? Yeah, but you've accomplished more in 6 months than most people do in 3 years. He leaned back. "The promotion comes with a substantial raise. Think you can handle it?" I thought about the trust fund, about how my family had thought I couldn't handle running my own business. When do I start? Later that evening, my phone lit up with Scarlett's face. Unlike the rest of the family, I still answered her calls. "You'll never believe what happened," she said, her voice tight with excitement. "What's up?" "I'm engaged. Jake proposed last night and—" She paused. "And I want you to be my maid of honor." The irony wasn't lost on me. "Scarlett, before you say no, hear me out. This isn't like Madeline's wedding. Jake and I are paying for everything ourselves. We're keeping it small, intimate." She took a breath. "And I miss you, Kate. We all do." "I got promoted today," I said, instead of addressing the wedding. "Senior project manager." "That's amazing! Mum will be so—" "Don't tell her," I cut in, "or anyone else." Silence filled the line. "They feel terrible, you know, especially after what happened with Uncle Zach's business." "What happened?" "You haven't heard? The whole thing collapsed. They're selling their house. Madeline and her husband moved back in with Uncle Zach and Aunt Diana." I let that sink in. Karma had a weird sense of humour. "Caitlin?" Rachel stuck her head into my office. "Client call in 5 minutes." "I have to go," I told Scarlett. "About the wedding. Let me think about it." The next morning, I arrived early to find David waiting by my office. "Remember that impossible project I mentioned yesterday?" He didn't wait for my response. "It just became more impossible. Client wants to move the deadline up by 6 weeks." I smiled. "Give me an hour to revise the timeline." "That's why you're the best." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and your new salary takes effect immediately." I pulled up my banking app during lunch. The numbers made me blink twice. My new monthly salary was more than what remained of my trust fund would have been. Rachel dropped into the chair across from my desk with 2 coffees. "Celebrating the promotion?" "Something like that." I closed the app. "My sister just got engaged." "That's great. When's the wedding?" "I don't know if I'm going." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Family drama?" "You could say that." I took a sip of coffee. The last wedding I was supposed to attend didn't end well. "Want to talk about it?" For the first time since arriving in Seattle, I did. I told her everything. The trust fund, the betrayal, my escape. "Damn," she said when I finished. "No wonder you work like you have something to prove." "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who recognizes the signs." She smiled. "I did the same thing after my divorce, threw myself into work, avoided anything that reminded me of my ex. It worked until it didn't." "What do you mean?" "At some point you have to decide if you're working this hard for yourself or to prove them wrong. One drives you forward, the other just keeps you angry." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Hugh. Got your number from Scarlett. We need to talk about the family. It's important." I showed Rachel the message. "Looks like the universe is trying to tell you something," she said. "Yeah, that karma's real." I put my phone away. "The family that took my trust fund is in financial trouble. Poetic, right?" Rachel stood, gathering her empty coffee cup. "Just remember, revenge might feel good for a moment, but it doesn't pay your bills or make you happy. Your success here?" She gestured around my office. "That's all you. Don't let them take credit for that, even as motivation." As she left, I looked at Hugh's message again. 6 months ago, I'd fled with nothing but determination and spite. Now I had everything I'd wanted: respect, success, independence. And soon I'd have something even better: the chance to say no when they needed my help. The call from Uncle Zach came on a rainy Tuesday evening, just as I was leaving the office. "Caitlin?" His voice sounded older, more strained than I remembered. "Do you have a minute?" I sat back down at my desk. "I'm surprised you still have my number." "Look, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from," he cleared his throat, "but we need your help." "We?" "The family. Things haven't been good since you left." I laughed softly. "And whose fault is that?" "Mine." The admission caught me off guard. I made a terrible mistake with your trust fund, and then I made an even worse one with our family business. I heard about that. I kept my voice neutral. "Scarlett mentioned you're selling the house." "We have to. The bank's foreclosing next month." A pause. Madeline and Tom moved back in. They couldn't afford their rent after everything. "That must be awkward," I said, thinking of their lavish wedding. "All those expensive wedding gifts crammed into your guest room." He ignored the jab. "We need a loan, Caitlin, just enough to keep the house until I can sort things out." "How much?" $50,000. I nearly dropped my phone. "That's less than what you took from me." "I know," his voice cracked. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, but right now we're desperate." Rachel appeared in my doorway, coat in hand. She mouthed dinner, but I shook my head. "Why me?" I asked. "Why not ask Mom?" "Solstice." He sighed. "She's not in a position to help. None of us are. But Scarlett mentioned you got a good job in Seattle." "Of course she did. I'll think about it." "Please, Caitlin, we can set up a payment plan." "I said I'll think about it." I hung up before he could respond. Rachel was still waiting. "Everything okay? Remember when we talked about karma?" I grabbed my coat. "Let's get dinner. I need advice." Over Thai food, I told her about the call. She listened without interrupting, using her chopsticks to push rice around her plate. "So," she said finally, "what are you going to do?" Part of me wants to tell them to figure it out themselves. I stabbed at my pad thai. Like I had to. And the other part? Wants to help, then hates myself for wanting to help. My phone buzzed. A text from Madeline. "Uncle Zach told me he called you. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but please help us. I'm pregnant, Caitlin. I can't raise a baby in a motel." "Wow," Rachel said, reading over my shoulder. "They're really pulling out all the stops." "You think she's lying?" "Does it matter? Either way, it's manipulation." I pushed my food away. "What would you do?" "I'd invite them to visit." She held up a hand when I started to protest. "Hear me out. Right now, they're imagining you in some entry-level job, barely getting by. They're asking for help because they don't know you don't need them anymore. Show them." "You want me to rub my success in their faces?" "I want you to make an informed decision. See them face to face. Let them see what they lost when they betrayed you." She grinned. "Plus your new place is gorgeous. The view alone might give Uncle Zach a heart attack." She had a point. My recent promotion had allowed me to move into a luxury apartment overlooking the city. The rent was more than my parents' mortgage. I picked up my phone and typed, "Come to Seattle this weekend, all of you. We'll talk about the loan in person." The responses came quickly. Mom: "Really? Oh, sweetheart, thank you." Uncle Zach: "We'll be there. Send the address." Madeline: "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Only Hugh's response gave me pause. "Be gentle with them, cousin. They're not the same people who hurt you." I looked at Rachel. "Am I making a mistake?" "Depends on what you want out of this." She signalled for the check. "Revenge, closure, reconciliation." "I want them to understand what they did, what it cost them." I thought about my new office, my view, my success. "I want them to see who I became without them." "Then show them." She handed her card to the waiter. Just remember what I said about working for yourself, not against them. That night, I stood at my floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the Seattle skyline. 6 months ago, I'd arrived here broken and angry. Now I was about to face my family from a position of power. I opened my laptop and booked 4 hotel rooms at a modest chain hotel nearby. Not too cheap, not too expensive, just comfortable enough to make what came next feel worse by comparison. The game was about to begin, and this time I held all the cards. The doorman called up exactly at 7. "Miss Caitlin, your family is here." "Send them up." I smoothed my designer dress, 3 months' salary at my old job, pocket change now, and waited. The elevator dinged, and there they were. Mum looked thinner, worry lines creasing her forehead. Uncle Zach's confident swagger had vanished, replaced by stooped shoulders and a grey pallor. Madeline's expensive highlights had grown out, showing mousy brown roots. Hugh hung at the back, watching me carefully. "This is... wow." Mom stepped into my apartment, eyes wide. "Honey, this is incredible." "Nice view," Hugh said quietly. Madeline pressed her hand against the floor-to-ceiling windows. "You can see the whole city from here." "Would anyone like a drink?" I moved to my wine fridge. "I have an excellent Cabernet, though water for you, Madeline, given your condition." She flushed, one hand moving to her still flat stomach. "You heard? You texted me, remember?" I poured the wine, watching their reflections in the window. 3 months along, is it? 2, she mumbled, accepting a water glass. I handed Uncle Zach his wine, noting how his hand trembled slightly. "Shall we sit? We have a lot to discuss." They settled onto my Italian leather sectional, another recent splurge. Mum kept touching things, as if confirming they were real. "You've done well for yourself," Uncle Zach said, attempting his old authoritative tone. "I have." I sat across from them. "No thanks to any of you." The silence that followed was deafening. "Caitlin," Mum started, "we know we hurt you." "Do you?" I set my wine down. "Do you know what it's like to start over with nothing? To eat ramen for weeks because you can't afford real food? To wonder if you've made the biggest mistake of your life?" "We never meant," Madeline began, "to steal my trust fund, to destroy my dreams, to betray me." Each question made them flinch. "What exactly didn't you mean to do?" Hugh leaned forward. "We're here to make it right." "With what money?" I laughed. "The business is gone. The house is being foreclosed. Madeline's living in your old bedroom with a baby on the way. What exactly are you offering?" "Our apology," Mum whispered, "for everything." I stood and walked to the windows, looking out at my city. "Did you know I'm a senior project manager now, youngest in the company's history?" "That's wonderful," Mum said, hope creeping into her voice. "My salary is triple what that trust fund was worth." I turned to face them. "I did that without your help, without your support, without your belief in me." Uncle Zach set his untouched wine down. "We need $50,000, Caitlin. We can work out a payment plan." "Like you did with my trust fund?" The words came out sharp as knives. "How did that work out?" Madeline started crying softly. Mum moved to comfort her, but she shrugged away. "No, Mom, Caitlin's right." Madeline wiped her eyes. "We took everything from her, and now we're here asking for more." "Because you have nowhere else to go," I finished for her. Hugh stood up. "Look at them, Caitlin. Really look. Is this what you wanted? To see them broken?" "Sit down, Hugh." My voice was ice. "You don't get to play moral compass now. Where was your conscience when they took my money?" He sat. I walked to my home office and returned with a folder. "Inside is a contract. I'll loan you the 50,000. Hope bloomed on their faces. "But," I continued, "there are conditions. First, I want the loan repaid with interest. Second, I want a formal acknowledgement of what you did with my trust fund, notarized and legally binding. Third," I met each of their eyes, "I want you to understand that this doesn't make us even. This makes you indebted to me." Uncle Zack reached for the folder with shaking hands. Whatever you want, we'll sign anything. Dad, Hugh warned, but Zack waved him off. No, she's right. We deserve this. I watched them read through the contract, heads bowed like penitents at confession. Mum's hands trembled as she signed. Madeline couldn't meet my eyes as she added her signature. Uncle Zack's scrawl was barely legible. Hugh read it last, his jaw tight. This is brutal, Caitlin. This is business. I collected the signed contracts. I'll have my lawyer review these and transfer the money tomorrow. You can let yourselves out. That's it? Mum stood. We came all this way for a contract signing? I moved to the door and opened it. You came all this way because you needed something from me. Now you have it. Good night. They filed out one by one. Hugh paused in the doorway. Was it worth it, making them grovel? I thought about Rachel's words about working for yourself versus against others. Ask me tomorrow, I said, and closed the door. I couldn't sleep that night. At 3 a.m, I found myself at an all-night diner, stirring cream into mediocre coffee when Scarlett called. They told me what happened, she said without preamble. The contract, the conditions, all of it. And I don't recognize you anymore. Her voice cracked. The sister I knew wouldn't humiliate her family like this. The family I knew wouldn't steal my future. I watched the cream create patterns in my coffee. How's the wedding planning going? Don't change the subject. Mum's devastated. Mum's devastated? I laughed bitterly. Where was her devastation when she signed away my trust fund? A waitress appeared with a slice of pie I hadn't ordered. On the house, honey. You look like you need it. I waited until she left before continuing. They came to me for money, Scarlett, not to make amends, not to rebuild our relationship, for money. Because they're desperate. Uncle Zack's business failing wasn't their fault. No, but stealing my trust fund was. I pushed the pie around my plate. You know what the worst part is? They still don't get it. Even now, they think this is about the money. Isn't it? No, I set my fork down. It's about trust, about family, about believing in me enough to let me follow my dreams instead of sacrificing them for Madeline's perfect wedding. Silence filled the line. I'm still waiting for you to answer about being my maid of honour, Scarlett said finally. Are you going to pay for my dress with my trust fund too? That's not fair. None of this is fair. Several heads turned at my outburst. I lowered my voice. You stood by and watched them take everything from me. You didn't say a word. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't want to choose sides. But you did choose. Your silence was a choice. The diner door chimed. Hugh walked in, spotted me and headed straight for my booth. I have to go, I told Scarlett. Your wedding will be beautiful, just like Madeline's was. I hung up as Hugh sat down. How did you find me? I asked. Followed you. I had a feeling you wouldn't be sleeping. He ordered coffee when the waitress came by. Want to talk about what happened up there? Not particularly. Tough. He doctored his coffee with sugar, because we're going to. There's nothing to discuss. They needed money. I gave them conditions. They agreed. You didn't give them conditions, Caitlin. You gave them a public flogging. I pushed my plate away. They deserved it. Maybe. He leaned back. But is this really who you want to be? The person who kicks people when they're down? Like they kicked me? Yes, exactly like that. His eyes met mine. You're becoming what hurt you, and you're too smart not to see it. The waitress refilled our coffees without asking. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten. Did you know, Hugh continued, that Madeline tried to cancel the wedding when she found out about the trust fund? Mum and Dad talked her out of it, said it was too late, deposits were paid, it would shame the family. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand something. What they did to you was wrong, unforgivable even. But this revenge you're pursuing, it's not hurting them as much as it's hurting you. I thought about my beautiful apartment, empty except for expensive furniture, about my impressive job title that I couldn't share with my family, about the satisfaction I'd felt watching them squirm, and how hollow it felt now. I worked so hard, I said quietly. Everything I have, I earned myself. I know. Hugh reached across the table and squeezed my hand. And that's amazing. But you did it for the wrong reasons. You did it to prove them wrong instead of proving yourself right. What's the difference? Look at yourself. Really look. Are you happy, Caitlin, or are you just successful? The question hit harder than I expected. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Madeline. I know you hate me, but this baby, I want them to know their aunt, to know the strong, amazing person you are, not the angry one we saw tonight. Please don't let what we did destroy who you really are. Hugh watched me read it. She means it, you know. It's not that simple. It never is. He stood and dropped money on the table for our coffee. But at some point, you have to decide, do you want to keep punishing them, or do you want to start healing? He left me sitting there, watching the sunrise through the diner's grimy windows, wondering when revenge had started feeling less like victory and more like chains. I found my family in the hotel lobby the next morning. They looked up as I approached, faces a mix of hope and apprehension. We need to talk, I said, dropping into an armchair across from them, about last night, about everything. Mum straightened. The contract. Forget the contract. I pulled it from my bag and tore it in half. This isn't about money anymore. Madeline's hand went to her stomach, a gesture I was starting to recognise. What is it about then? Truth. I looked at each of them. I want you to tell me why, not excuses, not justifications, why you really did it. Uncle Zack spoke first. I was desperate. The business was failing, and Madeline's wedding. I convinced myself it was temporary, that I'd pay it back before you ever knew. But you didn't. No. He looked down, and when you found out, I was too ashamed to face it. Mum? She twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit I remembered from childhood. I thought I was protecting the family, keeping peace. I told myself you were young, that you'd have other opportunities. Her voice cracked. I was wrong, so terribly wrong. Madeline? My cousin wiped tears from her cheeks. I was selfish. When Dad said he'd handle the costs, I didn't ask questions. I didn't want to know. And then when I found out... She met my eyes. I should have cancelled everything. Instead, I let them convince me it was too late. It's never too late to do the right thing, I said quietly. Hugh, who'd been silent until now, leaned forward. Your turn, Caitlin. Tell them the truth about Seattle. They all looked at me expectantly. When I left, I was broken. The words came slowly, not because of the money, but because my family, the people I trusted most, didn't believe in me enough to let me follow my dreams. That's not true, Mum protested, isn't it? You took my trust fund because you didn't think my business would succeed, because Madeline's wedding was more important than my future. No one spoke. So I came here angry, determined to prove you wrong, and I did. I gestured around us. I built everything you saw last night from nothing, but you know what? It feels empty. Because you did it for revenge, Hugh said softly. Because I did it for revenge, I agreed. And now I have everything I thought I wanted, except the one thing that mattered most. What's that? Madeline asked. Family. The word hung in the air. Real family, the kind that believes in each other, supports each other, doesn't betray each other. Uncle Zack stood abruptly. I'll sell my car. It's not much, but it's a start. Sit down. I waited until he did. I'm not finished. Mum reached for my hand, but I pulled back. What you did was wrong. Not just taking the money, but the way you did it. The lies, the justifications, the silence. I took a deep breath. But what I did last night, making you grovel, humiliating you, that was wrong too. You had every right, Madeline said. No, I had reasons but not rights. There's a difference. Hugh smiled slightly. So what now? I pulled out my checkbook. Now, I'm going to help you save the house. No contracts, no conditions. We can't accept, Uncle Zack started. You can and you will. I wrote the check. Because that's what family does, but this time we do it right, with honesty, with respect, and with trust that needs to be rebuilt on both sides." Madeline burst into tears. Mum wasn't far behind. "There are conditions," I added, holding the cheque just out of reach. "Not legal ones, but important ones." They waited. "First, we start therapy, family counselling, all of us." I looked at their surprised faces. "Second, we talk about things. No more secrets, no more assumptions about what's best for everyone. And third," I turned to Madeline, "I want to be part of my niece or nephew's life, really part of it." She launched herself at me, hugging me awkwardly around her barely there bump. "Done. All of it. Done." Mum joined the hug, then Uncle Zack. Hugh stood back, watching with satisfaction. "One more thing," I said when they finally let go. I turned to Scarlett, who'd been quietly watching from the hotel entrance. "Yes." "Yes?" She stepped closer. "Yes, I'll be your maid of honour, but I'm picking my own dress this time." She laughed through tears and joined our group hug. As we stood there, holding each other in that hotel lobby, I realised something. Revenge might feel good for a moment, but reconciliation, real, honest, hard-won reconciliation, that feels good forever. "So," Madeline sniffled, "want to help me pick out baby names?" For the first time in 6 months, my laugh was genuine. "As long as you promise not to steal them." The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I reviewed the final payment notification from Uncle Zack. He'd insisted on repaying the loan, even though I'd told him it wasn't necessary. Small monthly transfers, never missing one, each with a note of gratitude attached. My phone buzzed with Madeline's latest ultrasound picture. "It's a girl," the message read. "Still voting for Caitlin as a name?" "Absolutely not," I texted back. "One Caitlin in the family is enough." Rachel appeared in my doorway with coffee. "Ready for the big presentation?" "Born ready." I gathered my materials. "But first, I need your opinion on something." I pulled up a business plan on my screen, the same one I'd dreamed of funding with my trust fund, but better. Refined by experience, shaped by everything I'd learned. "A consulting firm?" Rachel leaned closer. "Wait, is this?" "The original dream, version 2.0. I scrolled through the projections. "But this time, I'm doing it right, building it alongside my job here, not rushing in blind." "Have you shown your family?" "Family therapy session tonight." I closed the laptop. Thought I'd bring it up then. The session was held in a warm office with comfortable chairs arranged in a circle. Dr. Martinez had been working with us for 3 months, helping us navigate the rebuilding of trust. "Caitlin," she said as we settled in, "you wanted to share something today." I opened my laptop. "Remember my original business plan? The reason for the trust fund?" Mum tensed visibly. Uncle Zack looked at the floor. "I'm starting it." I turned the screen so they could see. "Not asking for money or support, just telling you, because that's what we do now. We share our dreams." "It's amazing," Scarlett said, scanning the numbers. "But can you manage this in your current job?" "That's the beauty of it. I'm not rushing this time, building slowly, learning from my mistakes and others." I looked at Uncle Zack. "Actually, I could use your advice about what not to do." He looked up, surprised. "You'd trust my business advice after everything?" "You failed. That doesn't erase 30 years of experience." I smiled slightly. "Plus, who better to help me avoid pitfalls than someone who's fallen into them?" Madeline shifted in her chair, one hand on her growing belly. "I want to help too. My marketing degree might be useful." "We could make it a family business," Mum suggested, then quickly added, "Only if you want, of course. No pressure." "Actually," I took a deep breath. "That's kind of what I was hoping for." Dr. Martinez leaned forward. "This is a significant step, Caitlin. Are you sure you're ready to mix family and business again?" "No." I closed my laptop. "But I'm ready to try. With boundaries this time. With contracts that protect everyone. With honest conversations when things get hard. And with a kick-ass business plan. Hugh added, grinning. After the session, we gathered at my apartment. Mum brought dinner, her famous lasagna that I'd missed more than I'd admitted. As we ate, the conversation flowed naturally between wedding plans, baby names, and business strategies. "I have something for you," Uncle Zack said, pulling out an envelope. "The final loan payment plus interest." I pushed it back. "Keep it. Invest it in the new business instead." "Caitlin, I mean it." I looked around the table. What happened with the trust fund? It broke us, but it also made us stronger, made me stronger. I needed to prove myself, and I did. Now I need to prove I can trust again. Madeline raised her water glass. "To new beginnings?" "To family," I corrected, raising mine. "The kind that learns from mistakes instead of hiding from them." Later, as they were leaving, Mum lingered behind. "I'm proud of you," she said. "Not for the success or the money, for this." She gestured around. "For finding a way back to us. Even though I made it as difficult as possible. Especially then." She hugged me. "Because you did it your way, on your terms. That's the daughter I raised." After they left, I stood at my windows, looking out at the city that had given me refuge when I needed it most. My phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "How'd it go?" I typed back, "Better than revenge." On my desk, the business plan waited. But now it wasn't just my dream anymore. It was a bridge, connecting who I'd been with who I'd become, connecting my family's past mistakes with our future possibilities. The sun set over Seattle, painting the sky in colours of hope. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's finding the strength to build something new from the ashes of what was broken. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you build something better than you ever imagined possible.